Welcome to the Working Audio Tools podcast, the home of all things mixing, mastering, and pro audio, documenting our journeys to becoming full-time and established mix engineers. I'm Ed Dawn, this is Paul Third, and if you're watching, yes, we are still together. We're recording 2 episodes back-to-back whilst I'm up here in Scotland, which isn't as cold as I thought it would be, but it is definitely...
It was last week, you came at a good time.
It's definitely damp. It's a different kind of...
Yeah, it's damp.
Chill up here. This week, we're going to be talking about what Paul is planning on doing to maximize the diversity and income potential of his studio. And while we're going to do that, I'm going to think of some ways that I could do that with my studio. So in this episode, we do want your engagement. We want to hear how you are maximizing your income potential, utilizing different revenue streams, whether it be a studio or library work or online work. Let's pull together some ideas in the comments and make it a really community-based, engaging episode that we can really inspire each other with lots of ideas. So, Paul, you spontaneously came up with a good business plan this week, didn't you?
As all my business ideas are always off the cuff and spontaneous. But it actually came from an email that I received this week. I mean, I'll say it now, studio's open. So I had an email from a Scottish client. I think it was a mixer producer, and he asked me if I was dry hiring the Atmos room. Now, I'd thought about, dry hiring the studio because it's another income stream and not many people have access to Dolby Atmos because it's very expensive, and to do it right, you need to have the right room. And again, I'm just very fortunate. I'm in a great space where I don't have any neighbours to worry about, and I can really hit the room hard, and, I've treated it to the hilt. And it's a good setup, as we talked about last week. But the idea of dry hiring my studio out and potentially me not in it with all the expensive stuff I've got, there's a big element of trust that needs to be there. And unfortunately, I'm not the most trusting person in the world because I'm super tight, and I've always, not that I think everybody's trying to steal from me, but there's a lot of stuff, Ed, that goes on in the audio industry, gigs and fucking the amount of stuff that's been that's been stole and then sold on. It was only until, I was thinking about replying and I thought, right, but I don't want to lose a client because this is still a good opportunity. So off the cuff, I just went, right, there's my business idea, this is what I do. I just think off the cuff. So I came up with this idea of essentially hiring it, but hiring it in a way where I'm still in control. So I said to the potential client, not held back, he's probably like, oh, fuck you. But I said to him, like, what about I could do a fixed, price, so a day rate for the Atmos room. And then I'll have a morning rate and an afternoon rate. So it'll be half the full day rate. So you can have morning, afternoon. So it'll be like morning or afternoon, 4 hours, 8-hour day for me. That's as much as I want to do. 8-hour full day in studio and be a fixed price. And basically what would happen would be you would print your stems, tracks, and then so it'd be pre-mixed. You'd come in, would import it in Studio One. I would sit at the back of the room, import everything in, and then you would just tell me where you want everything. So you don't need to worry about, I need to get everything routed and set up on my computer, because everything's set up on my MacBook, and I'm a fuck leaving my MacBook Pro for somebody to go, just go in that room, I'll come back at dinner time, come back and I've been looted. Everything's been stolen on eBay. So I thought, right, I can make this work and actually be more efficient. So you don't even, doing it this way, you don't even need to know how to fucking work Atmos. Genuinely, you just need to go, can you pan that there? Can I pan it there? Can you put that
so you'll be dry hired as an operator.
Correct. And so I thought, from there that that's actually quite a good business idea where I'm understanding that there's a need for it because, and this is what's quite interesting, know how many people say, yeah, but now what clients are asking for Atmos mixes? He specifically got in touch with me because he said, for me to get this record, the client specifically said it needs to be Atmos mixes. So he's needing that to get the fucking record. So I'm offering it. Now, the pricing is a bit of a sticky subject, but the way I've priced it is, I think it's quite competitive. It's $250 for a full day. You'll be able to see it on my website. I need to update it. So it'll be updated when you watch this. But for me, $250 for an 8-hour day, if you think about it, that in 8 hours, if you've got somebody, if your tracks are well done and you've pre-mixed it well, surely in 8 hours, and if you've got somebody in control and you're just going bump, 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 put that there, we could get quite a lot of mixes done in 8 hours if you've got your shit together. And what I like is that it puts it more into their hands to say how you utilise your time is up to you. you've got engineer for hire, and it's kind of like, Ed does a lot of live stuff still, and you've got the thing with the basketball, where obviously a lot of that relies on how prepped they are as well. At the end of the day, they've got to pay you for your time. If you walk in and they're like, sorry mate, I fucked up that and that's not working, you'll be like, tough titties, like, you're paying me for my time. Once you get that set up, if it takes an hour to set up and then you need to charge me an extra hour on whatever, take it, that's the way it would work.
I work for that particular company. I work on a day rate of 8 hours and a day and a half rate, which would be 12 hours.
Yeah.
But it just so happens that they've streamlined everything, so it's just I do a 7.5 hour day for them on site, and that's one of the many jobs that company do that I do for them. So yeah, it's easy.
So I think it's a good way of managing your time and thinking, because remember we talked about how a couple of weeks ago how I was a bit unsure about trying to charge hourly, because then you're a bit of a gun for hire, where I wanted the whole production element where it's a fixed price and we just take the time it takes to get it right. But at the end of the day, if there's an opportunity there to make passive income, and you don't really need to do that much, because really I'm not in the driving seat. I'm just essentially, I'm not really driving the plane. I'm just kind of almost like the co-pilot.
I don't think that's passive income though. You're still working at a rate of £31.25 an hour.
Yeah, which I think is decent for, the skill set, and as well as the amount of investment I've put into that room, because that's obviously identified as something that not many people can get their hands on. So I was then...
Arguably, you should be charging more, because it's a premium as a result that nobody else has access to that.
Correct. But then, this is because I was really struggling on the pricing side. Because...
And if they could get 2 Atmos mixers done in a 4-hour session, and it cost them 125 quid, that's good value for money.
But then it's thinking for them, I was then thinking about for them, how much are they charging the client?
Not your problem.
Exactly. So that's what I was thinking, is that going to be something that's going to be, a thing that's going to happen? Because obviously they've got to think, well, if I'm charging, again, it depends what they're charging. They might say, yeah, I'll do a £600 a track. And then they're like, oh, I've only got 2 songs done, I had to pay him £250 for the day. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, but my budgets have went down like that. And I'm like, well...
It depends who his client is.
True.
Anyway, we're getting in the weeds here.
Yeah, I know.
We could go into the specific pricings of Atmos, but we're getting off subject a bit. So, but ultimately, another string to your bow is, in lieu of not wanting to do a full dry hire, you've proposed that you are effectively an engineer for hire with a room that does sound really good, will give clients arguably one of the best representations of Atmos, and they can basically communicate through you, because not everyone has, like if I was mixing, I don't have a clue where to start with Atmos.
True, yeah.
I wouldn't have a clue. I can't be bothered setting it up as a result, can't be bothered investing in it. If you lived closer, or if I lived closer to you, I would totally come around and do that. I'd be like, I'd go to my clients and say, yeah, look, it's £500 for the mix. Say you want Atmos, it's another 300 quid. I'd probably just give it to you to do, to be honest.
And I did say that, Tom. But
it'd be nice to be able to come around and say, actually, can you put that there? And I've got this idea on the spot. Can you do this? And I'd definitely utilise that and pass it on to the client.
Because technically, you've still mixed in Atmos. Technically, you've made the decisions. I'm just the fucking little guy, the co-pilot, just going, all right, okay, let's move that.
You'd have to get an assistant credit at least.
Yeah, which I was thinking as well.
Credit. I don't know how that works.
And again, I'm not charging for that really. I just like it would be nice to say, yeah, just get me a little bit of a credit, which is good for my career. Because at the end of the day, I am technically an assistant. That's technical assistant, call it that. But yeah, you make a good point, because I'm currently £300 for a mix. But obviously we've spoken about how like my stereo mixes are Atmos fold-down, so I mix. You get the stereo mix and the Atmos mix. So I did say to him, look, if you're doing the production, I'm happy for you to do all the production, all the recording, and I can do the Atmos mixes, and it'll be £300 a mix. So really, it's actually saving him more money, because if he's wanting more control, and I'm like £250 for a day rate, if he thinks he can get 4 songs done in 8 hours, then you know what I mean. It actually works out better in his favour. But it then does kind of get into the issue that we've got of how much is he charging the client in the first place.
Not your business.
Correct.
What your business is how much you're charging him.
Yeah, true. And so I think that is why I wanted to make an episode about this, was because when it was just an idea that I had, and I thought, how many other possible income streams are there from having, a studio like what we've got that you've invested a lot of time in? Because I forget that there's many people that, especially in Scotland, I was even thinking about doing a studio like day rate of maybe like 2 hours, right? Maybe like a 2-hour slot where people can pay just to check their mixes. So I'm like, look, I'll be here, but again, you can come in the control room, You can check on all my headphones. You can check on 1, 2, 3, 4 different sets of speakers. And it can be a place where you've got an acoustically treated room that's, again, being calibrated and stuff. You can even check stuff with the iLouds in the Atmos room. And, it's a mixed checking place. Or even a place for if you want to, you get a pair of headphones or something like that. And you're like, I don't really have a really good expensive DAC. Okay, just pay me 2 hours and you can come in and you could fucking have a play about and you could put it through the top end and you could hear things and we could EQ them and stuff. Basically the stuff that we were doing last night, like playing about with all the different EQs and getting the right targets. Like you could come in with me, I could EQ your headphones, let you hear it on and off and stuff and do EBs and you can go, right, okay, no, these headphones aren't for me, I'll send them back. And it's all these different income streams it's not passive income because it's still work, but it's not really, the work that I want to do full time, which is, working on people's music. But I think sometimes many people forget that they are in a very fortunate position that other people don't have the money, to invest in and have that quality every day. So if you think about your studio, you've got the benefit of, again, you've got a really, really dead room. Like it's fucking super dead.
A bit too dead, yeah.
A bit too dead. But again, you've got the drums in there. So you've got the drums in there. Again, you've had lots of vocal clients, these past couple of weeks. And again, you've got an amazing setup with Trinov and the Amphians and the heads, and you've got the Ananda Nanos, you've got the Topping DX7 Pro Plus. So, like, what has there been anything that you've been thinking that you could maybe do different in regards to thinking outside the box in terms of what you've got? I mean, because I noticed that you don't. I mean, have you ever done drum lessons? I know Jamie who does. No, I think that would be a little bit of a bitch move. I just thought about that there, but that's still an option for you.
I used to teach drums.
Did you?
And I even used to teach drums in schools, but that was a matter of absolute economic necessity at one point in my life, and I hated it. Well, teaching taught me to be patient or more patient.
You need to be, I did guitar lessons, it's like really hard.
Put in a room full of kids with drums is, never again. I always thought teaching is something I could do when I'm 50 and I haven't, not when I've failed at life, that's me. Like, it wasn't what I wanted to be doing. So no, I don't teach drums. I could do, same with teaching mixing, I could do that. But
what about a live sim course?
I want to do it.
What about a live sim course? I'm thinking everybody's going down the course route, and me and you have been like, we are very like course averse. But like, if you think about live sim, you would be a perfect candidate. And if you look at other people that's on YouTube, I don't know if there are many live sim channels on YouTube. It's not someone I follow.
There's not that many.
Yeah, so maybe that's an avenue where I'm like, people could obviously learn from you, from somebody with a vast experience that you've got. Don't know why, because my head's going, and I'm like,
no, this is good. Keep the creative juices flowing.
I'm just thinking like Ed comes up with like live sound wedding course. You've just got how you deal with this type of dodgy bride, how you deal with this husband that's just cheated on his missus, slept with the bridesmaid the night before. This is how you can deal with it.
We've seen it all.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
primarily because it doesn't interest me.
Right, okay.
And I'm really difficult to get to do something when I'm not interested.
But it could be if you think about
single.
But if you think about income streams, I'm just thinking there maybe would be a lot of people that would look for even mentorship, thinking about being a live sound mentor for somebody who wants to get in a live sound.
Right. Well, this is really getting off subject. I did consider having interns when I had my business.
Yeah.
But I don't have the time for it on a job. I do not have the time
100%.
to explain to someone which end of an XLR they need to plug
Well, what
into
about
a
what I
speaker.
do then? Just calls, just like maybe do a Zoom call and be like 60 quid an hour or whatever, and be like, right, okay, you can ask me anything you want, and just sit there and just like answer questions. I've got the setup. What would you patch that and that? And I would advise that and that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not tapping into a wealth of information that I've accumulated. Yeah. You are right, but the problem is I'm not interested.
But I'm just thinking, like, is that sometimes, what we miss as skilled professionals? Because that's something that we don't ever want to call ourselves, because we look at the spikes in the sermons. Well, we are, like, at the end of the day, we are skilled professionals. We've been working, especially in your live sound business. You are a skilled professional that's been doing it for, is it over a decade now? Or close to it?
Like, officially, probably 9 years.
Yeah, so we'll call it a decade.
But I was doing live sound for bands before that.
Yeah.
But bands I was playing with as a drummer as well. So I wasn't proper sound for other people since 2015. And I've got an extensive toolbox. Yeah, there's potential there. It's not a bad point. Again, it's interest. My heart's not in it. Like I literally do sound a couple of days a week because I can't get the studio to be my full-time thing at the moment. But it's taking longer than I anticipated.
But would it change your mindset if you knew that, for example, you were to say you had such and such client, or whatever you were able to do, utilising your skills, and you were to say, oh, I could maybe make an extra 300 quid a month. Would that interest you? Or would it be like still not worth my while?
Not for 300 quid a month.
What would be the thing? What would you look for to kind of make it worth your while?
If you said $3,000 a month in courses,
really,
I'd be like, I'd do that.
Right. Okay. So,
and that's possible. I've had so many people reach out to me, being like, do you want to do a course and we'll sell it for you?
Yeah.
Or we'll manage it for you, or we'll put it on this website, or I recommend using these guys. But this is live sounds definitely going off tangent for our listeners. But I do appreciate the outside the box thinking, and I am aware of how dismissive I've been of potentially a good idea. But ultimately, I do this, I lose interest in stuff.
Yeah.
As I did with live sound, and I don't want anything to do with it, but I just do it from an economical point of view now. What I can do with my studio is kind of what I've already been doing, which is offering vocal sessions, because there's a friend of ours, Andrish, who does this quite successfully, where he records bands and then naturally they don't know who can mix and master, so he says he can mix and master. And he does that as well for them, so he gets clients in for the whole process. I've done that a few times now, where I've had people in and then I've mixed the track and done a client master. This was before I was properly mastering. And it's worked. It's a logical funnel. And what I've got the benefit of is a really great studio for tracking vocals. Really good vocal chain with the Bach 187 mic that's really clear. It's like Universal Audio's version of a U87. Into a Neve, DS if I want it, into the Wes Audio stuff. It sounds really good. And then from there, you can go and mix stuff and master stuff. So I do need to push that more, but in an effort to focus on the one thing and only be perceived as a mix engineer, I've kind of avoided advertising it, although I've alluded to it more a couple of times this week on Insta. But my website has a whole page designated to recording, but I took it down. Same as I took all the drum recording stuff down, because I want to be seen as the one thing. And I think if you offer X, Y, and Z services, there is a perception where each one is being diluted every time you add another service, because how can you be specialist in that one subject if you offer drum recording, vocal recording, mixing, mastering, live sound courses, etc. So it's a fine line to tread, but I think what you're getting at is, at the moment, as we've discussed regarding prices and the race to the bottom, basically we're in a global recession, although it's not official, I don't think. I know. We need fingers in as many pies as possible. I'm temporarily not playing live drums because my elbow's a bit sore with tennis elbow, so that's difficult. I don't want to do a gig for 150 quid just to sacrifice my arm. I don't think that's worth the pain and the health jeopardy. So I'm not doing that, but there's not loads going on that scene at the moment. Everyone I know is saying that's quiet. Live sounds good. It's easy. I've got a few good contacts for that. Happy to do that to sustain the studio. And I just need to do more pushing of the services I can do in the studio. Ultimately, I think having, for the next couple of years, certainly while we figure out what's going on with Russia, are they going to nuke us or not? What's going on with the cost of living crisis, the mortgage crisis? What's going on with AI? How much is that going to affect our industry? I think things are going to be quiet for a couple of years while people don't know what to do with the money. Things get more expensive. People don't have as much disposable income. So we all need to have fingers in as many pies as possible. We're fortunate in that this does make a bit of money, thank you to our sponsors, because without it, we wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, true.
YouTube covers the rent of both of our studios, I think. You've got your day job. Mm-hmm. I've got live sound, and we've both got studios that hopefully can make more money at some point. So we're diverse, and we're very fortunate in that.
I think you're missing out on something. I think I understand the theory and ideology of the one thing, but when we're talking about having fingers in many pies, if you think about if you were doing drum recordings, you could do the exact same thing as you're doing with vocal sessions, where you're doing a drum recording for some an artist, and you could be like, well, who's mixing that for you? Who's mastering that for you? So really, if you were to do like put your fingers in all these different pies, then it's opening opportunities in a world where everybody's fighting for the same job all the time. Giving yourself as many different opportunities, and that's why I'm thinking about, the studio and even the live room, because then that got me thinking about like how could I dry hire the live room and stuff, and I was thinking about getting to keep the topping E4X4 and put an interface in there so people could use it for mixing, because there's the iLoud micros in there, and there's the IN UNFs and stuff that you could still use, even though it's connected to the piano. You could still use it. But I think, what I've been thinking about is how many opportunities can you create out of what you've got? And then hopefully, if you kind of create enough doors, you open enough doors for yourself, then hopefully that can lead to where you want it to be. But the only way it's going to get there is if you funnel it and if you push people in there. So as you said, you've got a vocal session in, who's mixing or mastering the track. Same if I was doing something in here and a flute player comes in and says, I need to play flute on something. I'm like, right, okay, it's still going to need mixed, still going to need mastered. And then again, you get into the whole Dolby Atmos discussion, you're going to need that and that. And then that brought me into, right, I'm focusing on music. We're going to be thinking about the one thing. I'm very focused on music. But we had audio animals on, and Paul Ashmore was saying that the film industry is gigantic and there's loads of opportunity. And lots of people have messaged me saying, Paul, why aren't you getting a film and TV? It just sounds like a logical move for you having an Atmos room. So then I've had to then think, right, I'm going to have to then get contacts and, but I think the part of me that's, because I know music really well, I'd have to learn what they require and how to. But then again, I've got Paul Ashmore. I'd like to think I can maybe just, phone him up or, get on a call and be like, look, mate, I'm not going to want to take business from you, but if you could help us out and maybe show us certain things that they require, or, just do a bit of learning myself. It seems like a faff to me to have to learn the whole. I've done the music thing and I'm still doing it. Then to have to learn the movie thing. Then I have to learn the TV requirements. But I'm probably doing myself a disservice because it's still work at the end of the day. And the more busier you are, then the more likely you are. It's the old adage, isn't it?
It's probably all the same processes. It's just a couple of different file delivery protocols.
Yeah.
They'll want things set to a different LUFS. They'll want everything in 48 kilohertz. That's broadcasting. They'll have different requirements that you just need to figure out. But that'll be quite easy. I mean, someone's going to have done a YouTube video on that.
Yeah, probably.
If not.
The Working Audio Tools podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at DistroKid for all of your musical distribution needs. Don't forget, you can't just upload your songs to Amazon, Spotify, iTunes, or Tidal. You have to go through a music distribution service. There are many out there, but DistroKid is the one that Paul and myself use. They don't take any of your royalties. You keep 100% of the streaming revenue that you earn. For just $1.92 a month or $22.99 a year, you can upload unlimited songs. Your lyrics can be found in Google and other places. You get the blue Spotify verified checkmark, and you can create royalty splits between yourselves and fellow contributors. You also get access to the new DistroKid iPhone app for editing and uploading songs and accessing your statistics on the move. There are plenty of other tools available on DistroKid. We'll go through those in another section.
So that's why I wanted to make this video, because I think that for me, just sitting there thinking I've got a 3-room studio and me realising all of the ways that that I'm not utilising it and all the avenues that are open to me, from a business point of view, it's kind of suicide to not open all these different avenues and to try and, push yourself even further out your comfort zone. But then that's only one side of it, because obviously you can have, like me, all these great ideas, but it's how you market yourself. And this was something that we were speaking about quite recently. So I think Ed's doing a good job just now with his Instagram, where I think you understand IG more than me. Instagram is like a fucking whirlwind for me. I just don't understand how people can make careers out of that. Because you see a lot of people will be like 6,000 followers, and I'm just like, fuck, you've only posted like 8 times. And you're just like, you're obviously bought.
Those numbers don't add up, do they?
Yeah, but I think what you do quite well is that you've been doing, I've noticed that you've been doing quite targeted posts. So you did one about the top in DX7 Pro Plus, which is just part of your studio. But then you do a little photo reel, and at the end of it, you've got like your little thumbnail thing that's like your price. if you want, like, obviously I do mixing.
Controversial studio adverts. That
Yeah, but it's a very good idea because
people are giving their opinions on left, right, and centre.
But it's one of those things where, again, I spoke to somebody 2 weeks ago, and I was on Instagram, and I was like, "How do you get work out of it?" He's like, "Paul," he went, "Think of it just like a random chance that there's going to be a time where somebody may be scrolling on YouTube, you do a post, and you get your hashtag right. An artist lands on your IG page, and all of a sudden they're like, they've got X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah." And that one random little click might cause them to look further into you. And all of a sudden they go, "Oh, I want to inquire about you."
Social media is a lot of work for that one random chance.
100%. That's what puts me off.
And this is something I will be doing moving forward. I've got a guy doing a lot of social media work for me. I'm doing the photo posts.
Yeah.
He's doing the reels and the shorts, and he's running a TikTok page, which I'll assess after 3 months whether this is worthwhile or not continuing with. But he's taking my long form YouTube content. Basically, we're trying to get all the tips and tricks and, ABs and demonstrations of things and turning them into that content that hopefully is useful. Because I've found when I've done impromptu shorts, like, 3 things that save me time in the studio, that reel did really freaking well.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
So I was like, right, that's something that works on Instagram. Let's jump on that. So he's doing all that, but what he's encouraged me to do as well, and I know I've needed to do it for ages, is do some behind the scenes things. Right, I'm mixing this. This is a problem I've got. This fixes it in the studio. This is what I want to be doing with some of the analog gear moving forward. I'm going to do a series on all the Wes gear. Not just a review, but saying, well, this is how I'm using it in a mix. This is a problem that this has helped me solve. This is how you can do it as well. And then compile that long form into short form and hopefully give people demos of what I can do in the studio with people's audio. It's a lot of work in terms of doing that to specifically gain clients. But for me, with the YouTube side of it already established and the Instagram side of it, everything ultimately is designed to funneling people to the website. Now, with, I could advertise, I could do posts on, I recorded on this track and this is the drum sound. I recorded these vocals, this is the sound we got. I mixed this track and I mastered that track, but it's so multi-messaging. It's confused messaging.
Yeah.
And everyone who tells me if you want to succeed, niche down, do the one thing, focus on one thing. Even marketing guys, I think I mentioned before in another episode, I spoke to a social media marketing guy and he said, right, the Audio Animals price structure works because they can target specific people with specific products that they can send with one link to the website and they just click on it and they can buy it as if it was Amazon. Minimal path of least resistance, minimal resistance in that purchasing funnel. That makes sense. But if you're like, I can play your drums and I can record your vocals, I can't do anything else because I'm musically illiterate besides writing songs, and I can then mix and master it. I think it would appeal to some people for sure, but it's creating the narrative and branding that and marketing that. Now, I know there are loads of people who can't record drums, and most drummers, let me rephrase that. I hear a lot of complaints from artists where drummers are a problem for them. They can't find the right person or someone who's good enough in the studio, etc. You hear that all the time. So I can fill a void there because I've done it. I've played drums for 27 years. I am a professional. I'm very good at it. Recording as well. I'm good at engineering drums. You're right, this is something I should push, but I've never quite figured out how to
amalgamate everything,
slot it in. But then thinking of your studio package idea, it could be cool. I'll give you a drum track, a vocal track, a mix, and a master for 1,000 quid's coming to mind. I mean, that seems expensive, but
because it's an old adage, isn't it? If you don't ask, you don't get. You know what I mean? That's just like.
And if you don't tell people, they don't know.
Correct.
That's another one we should expand on.
Yeah, put all that together, and I think that's something I've got to think about because the studio is, it's open, and I've got to reach everybody in my local area, and then I'm going to have to go from a local area, then hopefully branch out from a local area to Edinburgh, Glasgow, and then I've got to deal with that competing market. And obviously, I'm going to struggle to get people because what kind of artist is going to travel to me when they've already got studios there? But again, that's how you try and offer something different, and you bring in the Dolby Atmos thing and the whole aesthetic of Errol. So the one thing me and Ed were speaking about today when we were going on a walk is that, London is so hustle bustle, where when you're here, you could hear a pin drop. You know what I mean? It's so quiet. And, for many people in their creative process, that could be really good just to take themselves away from the noise and just have full silence to just sit there and make a record. So that could sometimes be, my in.
It could almost be a destination studio. I think
That's
you
what
have to team up with one of the
thinking
local hotels for a,
even we were speaking about that as well.
for accommodation. The place I'm staying is lovely. But what you could do is you don't have to just have one thing going on at the same time. You could have a local piano teacher in there in your piano room 6 hours a day.
Yep.
A drummer playing for a couple of hours in the evening, maybe. You could be doing Atmos guided sessions where you're engineering for someone, and you can have somebody. You could even hire an intern. Well, not an intern, because I believe people should get paid. Hire an assistant to operate this room, which could be a vocal track in, or a bass or guitar acoustic track in the studio. You could have 3 things going on, and Paul recently bought some red lights for his store cupboard.
I know that.
You've got an OnlyFans studio in the back.
I do. Pretty grotty, like it'd be a pretty grotty OnlyFans.
Doesn't matter if they're looking at the background. The subject ain't good enough.
Yeah, totally. I mean, even if I think about back to the Atmos, the last thing I mentioned was, even if you want to mix it on binaural yourself, I was off the cuff, because somebody's told me to do this, and I was going to do it, but I forgot. Was I said, right, I charge £50 per mix as a mix check. So if you mix it binaurally, you can send it to me, and I'll basically listen to it in my Atmos room, and I'll give you lots of feedback notes and say, right, okay, that doesn't work. I'll listen to the stereo fold down, listen to the Atmos mix, and then be like, right, that's not working. I'd pin that in, I'd maybe change that, I'd bring down that reverb, but maybe these kind of certain things that will make it more consistent to your vision. Paul, this is how I want it to sound. Okay, listen to it. It doesn't really sound that way. I'd maybe try that, and that. And then they could then obviously work back on the stereo fold down, get it to sound right, and then they know at least that for £50, they know that mix is going to translate somewhat pretty good to Atmos.
And you could even go one step further and get them round. You could have a listening session with them.
Correct.
For maybe £60. I mean,
even the mentor and stuff, like I'm £60 an hour, and we've spoken about this many times, but the fact that people are so disillusioned by all the confusion of YouTube. But again, that's another income stream, and I think that's what we don't do, is that we sometimes get maybe like what Ed's maybe like so focused on the one thing, he's maybe blinkered into that's what I want to be, so that's all I want to focus on. When really there's so many other great opportunities out there that you could be filling all that up, and then maybe over time that will all blend together. Because I've seen guys that are like genuinely doing stereo mixes that I'm just Atmos now. That's it. I just do Atmos only, and I'm like, you're losing a massive fucking chunk of market.
I tried that a year and a half ago when I sold the live sound company. It was no, I'm not doing live sound. I'm going to be belligerently stubborn about this and only focus on the studio. It didn't work. I had to eat some humble pie and go away and start doing live sound again, and accept that I'm an audio engineer, and the fact that I don't have to do a crappy job that I don't want to do.
We spoke about this on the
way.
way.
I only work on live sound for people who I want to work with for rates that I want to go out for, which are pretty good rates, and I can justify it, command it, and I get it. And that helps me do what I want to do the rest of the time in the studio, and some of it pays, some of it doesn't. It gives me YouTube also props that up. So I guess in a way I'm there saying I need to focus on the one thing, but I'm already been distracted with this podcast and YouTube, and I've probably already got the reputation as a YouTuber and not a mix engineer. And we've had this discussion where some people come to YouTube as very established mix engineers. We question why they do that. Sadly, we think, well, you're only doing YouTube because you're not busy.
Yeah.
And I'm the same. If I'm putting out content on YouTube, it's because I'm not busy in the studio.
True, yeah.
If I have 3 months when I haven't posted a video, it's because I'm doing what I want to be doing.
Yeah, 100%.
Whereas if I've got 3 videos coming out, it's because I had a quiet month last month.
But I think really what Nicholas from Panorama Mastering showed is that if you can add it into your workflow, then you can do it, but you've got to think logically about it. I think it's one of those things that you said about the one thing. If you want to be 100k plus subscriber, you've got to focus on YouTube.
Yeah.
If you want to be, the best, full-time mixing engineer, you've got to focus full-time. But that's not to say that just because you can't be the best of the best, that doesn't mean that you can, try and be, as good as each other. Maybe not the best, but at the end of the day, we do YouTube quite well. I'd like to think we've got the podcast, mixing, again, lots of various different things that we could do quite well. I've not perfected them, but I think you've perfected your live sim because you've obviously dedicated yourself to that. But I think in the modern day engineer has to think differently. I think we've kind of touched upon this is why many kind of engineers that have had quite an illustrious career are now doing YouTube, because they're seeing the benefit of, right, unfortunately a Grammy doesn't hold as much weight as it did maybe 10, 15 years ago.
because every other engineer's got a Grammy
Correct.
nowadays. That's not to take away from people who get them, because that is the holy grail, and respect to those people. But because the Grammys have been going for so long, it almost seems like everyone's Grammy nominated or Grammy for something, and it's an amazing achievement. But yeah, it doesn't quite hold the weight. It's like Oscar winning so and so. It's like,
because it's not getting you out
really
there. Because I think if you think about it back in the day, it was like,
sadly everything's just been oversaturated.
Correct. And you think about the way it used to happen, a lot of it was very word of mouth. It was like you were in certain studios, you were in that circle. But the thing is, the circle of audio has now expanded, globally. It's now a global community where you can get, you could get people in India to mix your track. There's engineers everywhere. If you think about like all of these different countries, there are tons of engineers that are doing stellar work and are like successful. You could call them successful. Where, if you think about maybe in the 80s and 90s, it was very, very, a small bubble. You know what I mean? It was very, like you had to be in EMI, you had to be in Capital. You had, again, if you think about it, in LA, you had to be in Larrabee. You know what I mean? If it was New York, it was the power station. You know what I mean? You had to be in the set.
Yeah, but that was when technology meant that there were industry gatekeepers.
Correct, 100%. And we don't have that anymore.
No.
So the world has changed and adapted. And as I've spoken about how I think many of us could be successful in this industry, is having more of a modern mindset and looking at the world as it is and thinking, right, everything is online now. So, you're trying to get everybody, like before it was like, all labels. It was like, I want to get Celine Dion, I want to get, the next big artist. You had the indie boom, and you had like, I remember pretty sure Michael Brower, he'd done the Cooks and stuff like that. But now, music is so global, and to the point where people can release it themselves, like with DistroKid, who's sponsoring this podcast. You know what I mean? Seamless link. You've got obviously like an abundance of technology available to people who you could genuinely sit and make records at home, and they need people that's going to mix and master it. They know that they don't really want to pay, or they can't afford to pay somebody thousands of pounds. They can't afford to pay Michael Brower or somebody that's Spike or Serban, like Manny. Even mid-tier mixers, a lot of them can't afford that. So they need to have somebody that's maybe a little bit more affordable. So there's a big market out there, because I think you won't know this off the top of your head, but roughly, what did you say to me, how many tracks are being uploaded to Spotify every day? Like as an average, roughly.
Oh, it's something like 100,000. As of February last year, it was 100,000 a day.
So there's
I think that included podcasts.
Okay.
Which
right.
skews the numbers a bit, but I would imagine at least half, if not 60, 70% of that is music.
Okay, so even if we were to say...
And if you remember, we had the chat that Daniel Ek has predicted, I think by 2027, that number would be as high as 300,000. And I balked at the idea and thought, that's rubbish. But then with AI now coming up and just being able to make endless, infinite amounts of music with whatever and upload it, it could easily be that. And with the amount of people now doing podcasts and...
Yes. So
any Tom, Dick and Harry's doing a podcast these days.
So there's a market.
Not many are lasting 8 seasons, though. I'll give them that.
Thank you very much. But so there's a market there, and so there's more work out there. Okay, it's not necessarily like the Celine Dion's of today. You're not going to get Ariana Grande or Dua Lipa or stuff. They're already set. But there's a lot of great artists out there that have got the technology now, and they can go out on themselves where they don't need labels and stuff, and they could go out and get a big following. So arguably there's more opportunity now. However, what we have established is that
with that is saturation.
Correct. There's so many engineers.
And
competition. So
it's impossible to stand out. You've got to do something different, and if you can't do something different, do as many things as you can.
So that basically brings me to the conclusion of, is the whole mentality of the one thing redundant in today's world?
Ooh.
The Working Audio Tools podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at DistroKid for all of your musical distribution needs. For a little bit more, $39.99 a month, you can have 2 artists on your roster, which includes everything just mentioned. Additionally, synced lyrics in Apple Music, further streaming analytics statistics. You can create a customizable record name. Mine, for example, is Ed Thorne Rhythm and Records. And you can customize release dates, pre-order dates, iTunes pricing, and again, much more. Now, if you're an artist manager or a record label, the Ultimate Bundle gives you up to 100 artists for just $89.99 a year. And you get 1 terabyte of instant file sharing, which is useful, but also contact information for thousands of playlist curators on Spotify. This is really useful so you can pitch your artist's music to playlist curators around the world, only available in the Ultimate Bundle from DistroKid.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think a valid point. I think you need to make a decision early in your career what you want to do. And I've thought about this a few times. I've thought about, because I've considered very humbly to take myself to the bottom of the audio rung and be a T-boy at a studio. And if I could do a couple of days live sound a week, I can afford to do that. The reason I haven't done that is because to get into Abbey Road, you need to have gone through the Abbey Road Academy from when you were 16. To get into Rack Studios, there's a 3-year waiting list. To get into most of the other studios, you need to have the Tonmeister course. And to do that, you need to have a Physics A level.
Really?
Yeah, which I don't have. I failed. I got a D at Physics AS level and sacked it off because I wasn't interested. I couldn't do it. So I don't have that. So, and if you're doing that at my age, 38, you're competing with guys who are 19 and are coming out of these colleges with these courses. And I've met some of them and they're doing really well. And they're talking about hearing 19 kilohertz. And I was like, cool, I lost that when I hit a cymbal for the first time when I was 11. It's like, well, I can't compete with that. But what I have over the 20 years I've been a professional musician in London is an absolute metric shit ton of experience that those kids don't have and will never have because they haven't had my path, and I won't have the experience that they will have by the time they're my age. But who was I speaking to the other day? Someone had been producing, that was it, a gentleman I met at Rack, who I'd like to get on the podcast actually, James, who has been mixing and recording engineering for bands from the age of 12, I think he said. And he must have been 30. So he's got almost as many professional years experience as I've got, 8 years younger, and he's well established in the industry. So he naturally had that opportunity and gravitated towards that. If I was 18, I would think differently. And I would think maybe youth provides the opportunity to focus on the one thing. Now it's a bit more difficult. You've got a family, a mortgage. I'm getting a mortgage. We have to think pragmatically. It can't just be, I want to only focus on the studio, which means mixing, because then it's a chicken and egg where, well, I can spend all my days in the studio mixing, but if I don't have clients, that's not going to make any money. So then if you diversify live sound, okay, I mean, I met someone the other day actually on a live sound job that I might have in the studio and could be a potential recording client.
Opening those doors,
You don't actually know where things are coming from, but if you focus just on the one thing, you've got to find a way of making that happen. Whereas now it's a bit of a chicken and egg where, well, there's not loads of clients, so it can't be a full-time living, so you have to do the other things, but they're taking you away from the one thing and are arguably a distraction, whether it be in terms of energy, workload, or mixed messaging to clients and people that you meet, or unless you can rely on having the conversations I've had with people where I'm like, yeah, I'm a professional drummer, I record in the studio, I record vocalists, I write, so I get the whole production process, I mix and I master, and people genuinely find that an interesting combination. So maybe I need to lean in on that. But is the one thing redundant? I think if you have the benefit of youth and you can afford to focus on the one thing, 100% do it, because to be the best at anything, you just have to put in the hours and the years.
But here's what I disagree
Can
with
you be great at many things? Can many things be the one thing? I think they can be, and I think I'm a good example of it.
Yeah.
Great drummer, great live sound engineer, good YouTuber. I can write songs. And, mixing, I mean, troll away in the comments about that, but I think I'm getting pretty good at it. So you can get good at many things, but how do you capitalize on that? And where does that take you ultimately? I think I've been brought up with this mentality of you have to be the best at something, otherwise it's not worth doing.
Right, okay.
And that is paralyzing because you cannot be the best at something.
100%, yeah.
You can only be better than you were yesterday. So maybe focusing on the one thing that matters in that hour or that day is a good practice.
Here's where I disagree. And the only reason I disagree with it, and this is this modern day world, is that like I could sit there and spend 5 years trying to be the best mixing engineer possible. I could be like, I've got the best of knowledge that I could gather in say 5 years. Now, what sells? Stuff like this in front of me sells. So if you think about the speakers, you think about the 500 series setup that you've got. I've got analog gear, the Dolby Atmos room, all these headphones, the DAC amp, Arc 4 running through that, all these sets of speakers, Fader Port 16, all the plugins that we've got. If you focus on the one thing, you can get really, really good at it. But from a business point of view, by diversifying and making money from various other things, what that then allows you to do is it allows you to slowly build up the investment that you're going to need. Because you could, and this is unfortunate, that you can have the really, really great skills, but the tools are important. Somebody made a comment about this on the podcast last week, and I think they are right, is that the tools aren't as important as the skills, but the tools do help you get the most out of those skills. So if you focus on doing all this stuff for free and becoming a great mixing engineer with what you got, yeah, you could get to a certain level. But without that investment in this modern day world, who's going to come to you? Who's going to come in? Because this is what is horrible. They'll go, "Oh, what are you mixing on?" I'm mixing on a pair of £200 speakers. Go to him. He's got these fucking £6,000 speakers.
Yeah, but you're assuming the client cares what the person is mixing on or understands
okay, let me change that.
£200 set of speakers.
Yeah, let me
isn't
change
a professional tool.
Okay, let me change that. Right. Let's take it. Obviously, they don't know what fucking an NS10 is. From
You're assuming a client knows
PMC.
the difference between mixing and mastering, which I can tell you a lot of them
True.
don't.
But let me simplify it then. Visually, right? Think about the way Instagram is used. A client is more likely to go to somebody that visually has an investment in their room. And this is the harsh reality of the way the world works now.
I kind of disagree with you.
Dating apps are the same. If you look at a lot of times you look at people, they're filtered and you're like, I'll go with them because they look the best. Fuck personality, they look the best. And I find a lot of people on Instagram especially, they base somebody on the investment that they've made, not as much on their skills. But in terms, there needs to be an investment still. And I think by diversifying and getting your hands in lots of different pies and opening yourself open to more opportunities and being able to make money, you're not becoming the best at the one thing, but you're becoming good at lots of various other things, which is going to open more doors and then allow you to invest in the tools that you need to then get better.
There's two problems with that though.
Right.
One is to be good at something now isn't good enough. To stand out as a mix engineer, the standard of mixing globally is absolutely phenomenal. And you've got Spike Stent and you've probably got 10,000 people who can mix as well as he does, but they've just not established a reputation for whatever reason. I think to stand out now is so difficult in any art form, any media, photography, film, whatever. We've talked about it before. You have to be so freaking good you can't be ignored. And to get that good, you really have to spend years doing what we're doing or focus on the one thing. The second problem is the industry's changed, whereby we no longer really have the business model of there's a recording engineer, there's a mixing engineer, there's a mastering engineer, there's a producer, there's an artist, and there's an artist manager, and there's an A&R guy, and there's a label guy. There's people doing all of that for themselves now.
Yeah.
All of that. So there's no traditional rails, as it were. There's just a mess of tarmac and everyone's just driving around like in Bangladesh, just banging into each other and, trying to get in their direction.
Well, let me ask you another question then, right? You said to me that, a client would know the difference between an expensive pair of speakers and a cheap pair of speakers.
They won't have a clue.
Let me ask you this one.
Even if they heard them, most won't have a clue.
Does your average client know the difference between an outstanding mix and a good mix?
Yes.
I would disagree. I genuinely think that
they won't know how to quantify it or substantiate what the differences are, but I think they would know the difference between something with too much bass and hitting the limiter versus something that's balanced and is
Yeah, but
loud.
I said good, not bad. I said the difference between a good mix and say like a theoretical outstanding mix. Because at the end of the day, if they are given good and they like it, then that's good enough. Then that's like all their.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
So that's the thing. So again, I would probably maybe disagree with that from that point of view. That at the end of the day, there's loads of people out there that are making successful careers that aren't Spike Stent and Serban, but they're very successful and their mixes are very good.
Yeah. I mean, true. I did a post on, was it Facebook somewhere or Threads maybe?
Hate Threads. See the point.
Waste of time. Mind you, you're talking to the guy who thought YouTube was a dumb idea when I was told about that, and apparently I was wrong.
You were massively wrong, yeah.
Won't be the first time. That's why I've held on to my crypto for so long. But I asked what the going rates for mixing were, and the rates that came back were very healthy. Now, there weren't many people saying, oh yeah, I mix. Well, actually, I think there was one person who said he mixed for like $100 and he got annihilated by everyone else. Yeah. You're the problem with the industry, blah, blah, blah. You're the reason it's fucked. But the rates were healthy, so there was encouragement, but then you don't know how many people are inflating that. You know, it's easy to say, yeah, my studio earns X amount a year. It's like, well, good, no one can prove it or disprove it.
So I think if we bring it back to the whole point of this kind of episode, when we think with diversifying and, you know, making...
Rent your studio out for OnlyFans.
Yeah, totally, yeah, basically. Yeah, get a red room in the back. Do Thornhub in the back.
There is a logo for that somewhere. Thanks, Andrews.
I know. Well, I think that, you know, I think and we might maybe can talk about this in maybe 6 months to a year's time, and obviously I've had the studio open and I've talked about my experiences, but I think we do need to think out the box these days. I think skill can, in the modern day era, only take you so far. I think skill is like, yeah, it's a theoretical thing where obviously we want, you know, everybody to be the best that they can, but at the end of the day, we're in a very saturated world where things are very looks based and things are very artificial, and, you know, people do fake it till they make it. Even Jason Joshua talked about that. He was like, I was doing big records and I wasn't the best I could be, and I was just fucking faking it till I made it, and I learned from bad mix to bad mix. You know what I mean?
So, and do you know what, the phrase "the cream rises to the top" keeps coming to my mind, and I'm beginning to question whether it does.
I'm the same.
And as a result, I think diversifying is definitely the answer. And again, both of us are in very fortunate positions where we 100%. Can diversify well in a lot of different areas, and maybe that's what we need to embrace for 2025.
Yeah. So what I want to do this week is I want, in the comment section, I want you to think about and comment if there's anything that you think that me and Ed have missed, anything that we could diversify upon, any missed opportunities, and also think about if you have any missed opportunities, if you've kind of sat and listened to our waffle and you've thought, I could actually maybe go into that, and maybe I've actually thought about, no, I used to do that and that's maybe a missed opportunity. Comment down below, because I think if the comment section is, you know, detailed enough and we share enough, then actually there might be some banging ideas for all of us to make a little bit more money and diversify and actually make like more of a successful career and make more money out of this. Because at the end of the day, we've all got bills to pay. You know what I mean? And we want to make a living out of this. So, and
if there's enough good ideas, we might get another episode out of it.
I know, of quality.
But also let us know if you've tried things and they've failed, because we learn from failures. Let us know if you think we've left things on the table or things that you have done that have surprised you, that have worked for you guys. Yeah, we'd love to know that.
Yeah. Perfect.
On that Iron Brew bombshell.
That's the honor. I was going to say it's right there, but you had his Iron Brew sitting over there. You actually did buy Iron Brew last night.
It's good. I like Iron Brew.
Yeah, but was that just because you were in Scotland? Though?
Yeah. And it's the only thing you have in the shop too. Yeah, true, Iron Brew and beer and whiskey.
By the way, you actually did like the beer that you had in when you first got off the train. Eh?
We did find a very good beer in Dundee. Yeah. It was like a lager / ale.
Yeah, the Northernman.
Forgotten the name of it.
Yeah, the Northern man was very happy, yeah. So yeah, we're waffling now, right? So either way, leave your comments down below. I've been Paul Third, that's been Ed Thorne, and we'll see you next week.